Step 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all.
And that's our focus today. We want to give you a really solid, practical understanding.
Exactly. We'll be drawing from the NA Basic Text, the 6th edition, It Works, How and Why, and also the NA Stepworking Guides.
Right. The mission here is to help you feel clear and, well, prepared to actually work this step without getting overwhelmed by it all.
Because it is a pivotal step, isn't it?
It really is. Up until now, so much of the work feels internal, focused on the self.
And step 8 is where that focus starts to shift outwards, towards others, towards the impact we've had.
So what are the core spiritual ideas behind that shift? What's really driving step 8?
Well, fundamentally, you've got accountability. That's huge. Really owning our past actions and, importantly, their consequences.
Okay, accountability. Makes sense.
Then there's willingness, cultivating this genuine readiness, this openness to the idea of actually making amends.
Willingness. Not just thinking about it, but being ready to do it.
Precisely. And that leads to the principle of restitution. The actual desire and intention to repair the harm we've caused, wherever that's possible.
The basic text really hammers home how important making that list is. Why is the physical act of listing them out so critical?
It's more than just jogging your memory. Psychologically, writing it down makes it concrete. It takes this vague cloud of guilt or unease.
And it makes it specific.
Exactly. It externalizes it. You're moving it from something abstract inside you to a tangible record you can look at. That act of making it visible, that's often the first real step towards taking ownership.
Breaking through denial, maybe?
Absolutely. And the basic text, I think is page 91, says, seeing that wreckage we had left behind becomes clear. And that clarity is absolutely essential for our spiritual growth. It mentions the burden lifting through willingness, too.
Okay, so making the list is essential. As you, the learner, start thinking about this, who actually goes on the list? Is it just people you had big blow-ups with?
It's usually much broader than that. You need to think really widely. Anyone directly harmed by your actions when you were using, or maybe through dishonesty or just self-centeredness.
Right.
But also people harmed indirectly. Maybe the families of people you hurt directly or colleagues who had to pick up the slack.
Okay, so ripple effects.
Definitely ripple effects.
Right.
And crucially, don't forget to include yourself on that list. Addiction causes immense self-harm. Living against your own values does too.
That's a really important point. What about institutions, like employers or maybe even the community?
Yes, they can belong on the list too if your actions caused harm there. Think unpaid debts, damaged property, broken trust within an organization.
So it's not just the obvious stuff like, say, stealing. It's subtler things, too.
Right, absolutely. Neglect is a big one. Unkindness, constant criticism, broken promises, dishonesty in all its forms, even omissions, things you didn't do that caused harm.
So you need to look at specific actions, specific behaviors.
Yes, get specific. The Stepworking Guide actually has a harm inventory framework that can help prompt this kind of thinking. It pushes you to recall concrete examples.
And time frame. Does it matter when the harm happened?
Consider the whole picture. Often the patterns stretch back further than we initially realize. The key, really, throughout this whole process is just rigorous honesty with yourself.
That sounds like where the Stepworking Guide could be really useful. You mentioned the framework.
Yes, and it often includes an actual harm inventory worksheet. It's practical, it gives you columns, person harmed, what was the specific action, what kind of harm was it, emotional, financial, whatever.
A structure to help organize it.
Exactly. And when you're reading the basic text on step 8, around pages 89 to 91, it actually suggests underlining the words willing and harm. That really focuses your attention on the core concepts.
Okay, so the list is starting to form. We've identified who we harmed. Is that the main point of step 8? Just the list?
No, it goes deeper than just identification. The next layer is understanding the impact. How did your actions actually affect these people?
So not just, I lied to them, but my lying caused them to distrust others, or it cost them money, or...
Precisely. Reflect on the how. Was it emotional pain? Financial hardship? Did it damage their reputation? Affect their career? Their sense of safety? Their self-worth?
That requires some real empathy, doesn't it? Trying to see it from their side.
It does. Let's think about that professional example we discussed, Sarah. Even without addiction, remember, her unreliability, missed deadlines, unfairly delegating, blaming others.
Right. The impact wasn't just on her work.
Not at all. It eroded trust across the whole team. It definitely increased stress and workload for her colleagues who had to compensate.
And that could hurt their reputations too if projects failed.
Absolutely. It could have had financial consequences for the company, sure, but also think about the emotional toll on the people working with her day in, day out. That constant unreliability creates anxiety and resentment.
So we're looking at immediate effects and the longer-term fallout.
Yes, both direct and indirect consequences.
Yeah.
Really trying to grasp the full picture of the harm.
Okay, so once you have a clearer sense of that impact, what's next? You mentioned willingness earlier.
Yes, and that's arguably the most critical part of step 8,
Mm.
cultivating the willingness to actually make amends.
Willingness. It sounds simple, but I imagine it feels complicated. What does willingness really mean in this step?
It's about fully owning your part. No excuses, no yeah buts, no minimizing what you did. It's acknowledging the harm you caused, period.
Facing it head on.
Yes, and it includes being open to facing the discomfort that comes with that, open to potentially confronting people you've hurt, and really importantly, committing to changing the underlying behaviors.
So it's more than just intellectually agreeing you should make amends.
Oh, much more.
Right.
It's that shift to a deeper, almost spiritual acceptance of the need to do it. It's moving from your head to your heart, you could say.
Yeah. What if you feel resistance, like fear about contacting someone, or maybe you still feel justified about something?
That's really common. And the harm inventory framework actually advises noting that resistance. Don't ignore it. Acknowledge the fear, the anger, the unwillingness. It's part of the process.
So noticing the resistance is okay.
It's more than okay. It's important information. You work through that resistance, often with a sponsor or others in recovery. But the goal is to become willing.
Does being willing mean you have to know how you're going to make amends right now?
Not necessarily. That's more step 9 territory. Step 8 is about cultivating the readiness, the internal state of being prepared to take action when the time is right, guided by principles and maybe advice from your sponsor.
So the focus is on the inner shift first.
Exactly. Some practical guides even suggest things like journaling, writing out willingness statements for specific people on your list. I'm willing to make amends to X for Y.
Like making the intention more concrete.
Precisely. It helps solidify that internal commitment, moving it from just a thought to a stated intention.
How does all this connect back to the earlier steps? Step 8 doesn't just appear out of nowhere.
Not at all. It flows directly from them. Think about step 4, the fearless moral inventory. That's where you first started identifying the patterns, the defects, the harmful behaviors.
Okay, so step 4 was the internal look.
Right. And step 8 takes that self-knowledge and applies it externally. It identifies the wreckage, as the basic text calls it, that those patterns created in the world, in your relationships.
And step 5, admitting the exact nature of our wrongs.
Step 5 is the admission. Step 8 provides the specific who and the detailed what that you admitted to. It sets the stage for the amends process that really kicks off in step 9.
And the willingness aspect must build on earlier steps too.
Definitely. Steps 1, 2, and 3 involve surrender, belief, and turning our will over. Steps 6 and 7 are about becoming willing to have defects removed. That growing spirit of willingness is essential groundwork for the willingness required in step 8.
So doing this work, honestly facing the harm, cultivating willingness, how does that help someone grow spiritually in recovery?
Well, for starters, honestly, looking at the harm you've caused starts to chip away at those massive burdens of guilt and shame that so many carry. Secrets lose their power when you bring them into the light.
That makes sense. Less weight to carry around.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And becoming willing to make amends, even before you take action, begins to loosen the grip the past has on you. You're no longer defined solely by those past actions because you're actively choosing a different path forward.
A path of responsibility.
Yes, and that aligns you with spiritual principles like honesty, integrity, humility, compassion. Taking responsibility and seeking to repair harm is inherently a spiritual act. It fosters connection and moves you toward genuine freedom.
You know, these principles, accountability, willingness, making things right, they sound like they could be really valuable outside of addiction recovery too.
Oh, absolutely. The core ideas of step 8 have universal value. Let's go back to Sarah again, the professional example.
Right, her issues weren't substance related.
Exactly, but the principles apply perfectly. By acknowledging the harm her unreliability caused, step 8 work, essentially, becoming willing to change, and then actually changing her behavior and perhaps apologizing, step 9 actions, she could mend those professional relationships.
So harm isn't just about addiction consequences. It can be professional unreliability, maybe emotional neglect in a family, thoughtless words.
Any situation where our actions negatively impact others. And this leads to the idea of living amends. It's not always about a grand gesture of apology. Sometimes the best amends is consistently changed behavior.
Showing up differently.
Day after day, that becomes a vital part of living these principles ongoingly in all areas of your life.
The NA literature we mentioned, the basic text, it works. The guides, do they offer different angles on step 8?
They complement each other well.
Hmm.
The basic text really emphasizes the necessity of the step for spiritual progress and that sense of relief that comes with willingness.
Okay, the foundational why.
Yes, then it works. How and why often goes a bit deeper into the psychological side, the freedom from isolation and secrecy, the relief from guilt that comes with taking responsibility.
More the internal experience.
Right. And the Stepworking Guides are the practical toolkit. They give you the how-to, the worksheets, the structured questions, guidance on things like writing those willingness statements. They help you actually do the work.
Got it. And all this work in step 8, it's really setting the stage for step 9, isn't it?
Absolutely. Step 8 is the preparation. Step 9 is the action. You're building the foundation of understanding and willingness in 8 so that the amends you make in 9 are grounded, sincere, and effective.
That willingness piece feels crucial then. You can't really do step 9 effectively without having done the work of step 8 first.
It's the essential precursor. Making amends without genuine willingness can feel hollow, or might even cause more harm if it's done defensively or insincerely. Step 8 cultivates that necessary inner readiness.
So as you, the learner, are sitting with this, starting to think about step 8, what are some good first questions to maybe ask yourself?
Good reflection prompts might be, just thinking about your past, who are maybe the first 2 or 3 people who come to mind where you feel some regret or know there's unresolved harm?
Okay, start small maybe.
Yeah. And then what specific things did you do or maybe not do that caused that harm? Try to be concrete.
Get specific again.
Then check in with your feelings. What comes up when you even think about approaching these people? Fear, anger, shame. Just notice it.
Acknowledge the feelings.
Exactly. And finally, for each situation, what might be the tiniest first possible step towards becoming willing? Not making the amends yet, just moving towards willingness. What could that look like for you?
Those seem like really helpful starting points, manageable.
The goal is to begin the process gently but honestly.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive on step 8, what are the absolute key takeaways for you, the learner?
I think the core is. Step 8 is fundamentally about honesty, seeing the harm clearly. It's about accountability, accepting your part without reservation. And it's about cultivating active willingness, that readiness to take steps to make things right.
Honesty, accountability, willingness.
Yes. And understanding that this internal work, this shift, is challenging, sure, but it's profoundly liberating. It's a huge step toward spiritual growth, healing, and genuine freedom from the past.
This has been incredibly helpful, I think, in laying out not just the what of step 8, but the why and the how to prepare, really building that foundation.
That was the goal, to provide that clarity and practical grounding.
So a final thought for you, the learner, to maybe reflect on after this.
Consider one relationship, just one, where you know past actions have created some distance or maybe a lingering sense of unease. How could the principles we've talked about today, that honesty, that accountability, that tiny seed of willingness, how might they begin to offer a path towards healing in that specific situation, even before you think about making any direct amends?
Just the internal shift itself.
Exactly. Think about the power of just starting that internal process. How might that alone begin to change things? Something to consider.